Hello everybody, I am Ben from Team Panic, and today Bugglebots is happening. It's happening. It's a thing. The trailer has been released, and I will throw a link to that in the description down below. And the season starts on Monday. I'm putting this video out on the Saturday, and on the Monday the season is starting, which is awesome. We have waited all year for this. A huge thank you to all of the team behind Bugglebots, especially all of the editors and the people who have been editing the show completely in their own time, in their own free time, since we wrapped filming on this. The trailer itself looks awesome. They've done a really great job with that, and if the season is edited half as good as that trailer, we are going to be in for a treat. And you and me both, because of course being there, I did not get to see all of the fights that happened at Bugglebots. I saw my fights and a handful of other ones, but I did not see everything, so I am just as keen as a lot of you out there to watch this series through. So today, in celebration of the fact that Bugglebots is actually happening and we're gonna have the season, I am going to make a nice little stand for my Bugglebots participation trophy. This is a little laser cut acrylic piece, which is really nice, and I've been wanting to have this pride of place on my shelves for a while, but I figured that we would hold off on doing this until such time as Bugglebots was actually happening, and you know, there was proof that we were there and we were actually involved, and that proof is out. The trailer, there is a shot of me fighting 2Berg 2 Furious. Now, a lot of you, if you know the Berg and you know what they're like, you might know which way that fight has gone already, but I can tell you it's going to be one to watch anyway. So I can't tell you much else, really. I don't actually even know exactly when my heat is going to be coming out, because of course I am one of a set of heats, so I don't even know particularly when that is actually going to happen. I will say, of course, that as soon as that does happen, there will be a video from me here talking about my experiences at Bugglebots, because there's a bit to talk about. Yeah, it was good fun, but we'll get into the details of that later on. Also, I will say as well, if you want to have a bit more of a rundown of all of the robots that are actually going to be competing in Bugglebots, I'll also throw a link to World of Woodrow's video, which is a trailer breakdown, because he's done a really great job of pausing frame by frame and giving you the full list of all of the competitors of Bugglebots. So if you haven't seen a full list yet, I'll throw that link down in the description below, and definitely make sure you check that out. Of course, we're competing over at Bugglebots with Annie. Are You Okay? Annie is a different beast now than she was over in the UK, mostly because in the UK she had more weight. So there was a bunch of different changes and bits and pieces. A lot of the weight went into armor, but there were some upgrades around weapon and weapon mountings and things, which had to script back out again, coming back to Australia. And yeah, I've just obviously gone through very recently and done a whole new upgrade on Annie, getting her back into, well, getting the new Australian weight chassis into a decent fighting form. Yeah, so Annie is the one that you should be looking out for over there in Bugglebots. Anyway, like I said, we're going to go on and do a little trophy mount for our little participation trophy. Now, I'm going to do something that a couple of you have either probably done before or at least seen done before, which is I want to light this thing from the bottom, because the laser etching on the acrylic up the front here is really going to catch the light nicely, and we're going to have a very interesting looking piece on our hands. So I'm going to move Annie off the table and we're going to have a look at how we're going to do this. All right, so here is the plan. Like I said, we've got our little Bugglebots token, which is very cool, and I have some light strip here, which is basically just tricolor LEDs in a light strip. Now, some of you have seen NeoPixels or know of NeoPixels, which are individually addressable, which means that you can change this one and that one to be different colors. This is not that. This is just single run of light, so you tell all of it to do something and it all does exactly the same thing. But that is going to be fine for this application. This thing is so small, we're only going to need one strip, and really probably only need one LED out of one strip to make all of this stuff work. So how does this stuff work? Because this stuff, if you have a look at it, it says, and my camera is not going to focus on that, but it's got 4 input rails. It's got a 12-volt rail, a green, a red, and a blue rail on it. So you plug 12 volts or a high enough voltage into the top rail, and then you ground out one of the other rails to get it to activate that color. So green will give you green, red will give you red, blue will give you blue, and the combinations of those will give you different coloring. So if you want purple, you do red and blue. You pull them both to ground at the same time, you get purple out of your light strip. You do all 3 at the same time, you get white out of your light strip. That's how this stuff works, but it all runs on 12 volts, or it should run on 12 volts. You can run it a little bit under. I get away with running it on 2S LiPo voltages quite a lot, but you can't run it on 5 volts. If you plug it into 5 volts, it just does not turn on. And that is a bit of a problem because Arduinos, which is the thing that I would want to run this thing with, yeah, they run on 5 volts. They send out 5 volt logic and they can only take 5 volts into each pin. So we can't just connect one of these pins directly up to the strip because you're going to blow up the Arduino. Now, people do sell driver pins or driver boards for these things that you can connect between an Arduino and these boards. But, you know, I'm just going to hack this with stuff that we have around here. A small strip of this LED stuff. I also have a motor driver H-bridge board, which I've used before in my Arduino combat robot stuff, which is why I have one of these just laying around. And of course I have an Arduino Uno here. We will shrink this down in a second, but this is just my test rig. We're kind of just using the bottom half of 2 or 3 of these half H-bridges, essentially. It's all a little bit hacky, but it does work, which is the most important thing. I probably will get a driver board for this at some point in the future. It's just for right now, this is what I have on hand, and it is going to work. So if I actually plug the 5 volt or the 12 volt rail into the light strip and then plug a battery pack into that, it will all power on up. So it turns out I had my pins in around the wrong way, and in actual fact, why I've turned this back on is, at least on the screen of my camera, I can see the PWM flicker in this guy. So as it changes down, you see the lights flickering, especially on my finger. That's just to do with the interplay between the frame rate of the camera and the flickering of the PWM that the Arduino board is outputting. I just think that's really, really cool. So as it now goes back up into a different color, you should see that start to go a little bit crazy again. The red was the one where it was really, really noticeable, which I think is just after the green here on this strip. Yeah, so quite an interesting little effect. Yeah, there you go. The red is really, really bad for it. I really hope this comes out on the actual YouTube render, because otherwise I'm going to sound like a crazy person. Okay, so I've neatened up our wiring here. This is actually just an old ant weight Arduino board that died because the actual transceiver module died. So the H-bridge itself that was used to run the ant weight motors was still fine, so I've hooked it up to the lights, and if I throw the switch, we get the same thing we had before. Yeah, with the nice flashes from the PWM. Now it's time to mount it inside the actual casing that has just finished printing. My printer is not doing the greatest at the moment, but we've got a nice little Bugglebots logo across the front. We've got space to load up our trophy at the top here, and in underneath there is a slot for the lights. So let's get that in place. I think we'll go lights first. Now I'm not going to glue the trophy or the front and back together right now because I'm going to leave that for the moment. Basically, I want to add to this. If we have anything to add to it from the series, we're going to add it to this trophy rack as those things happen in Bugglebots. So we don't know yet. We'll have to wait and see. So for the moment, I'm just going to very lightly glue the lights in. I'm just going to have to hold this for half a second while the hot glue cools off, because it does want to move away from that point. Okay, so now that's dried in there, now we can fill up the rest, just gonna run some quick beads down the side. And just a couple right over top of my fingers too. As long as that doesn't burn me, that will be all good. Okay, so now we're all hot glued up and jammed in. I mean, the battery's just kind of sitting in there at the moment because I don't really want to hot glue a battery into this thing. Yeah, I do want this to actually come apart at the end. Also, yeah, the trophy itself is literally just a push fit into the top casing here at the moment. Once again, because we might be modifying this as the season goes on. So we should be able to click that together, but what we're going to do first is we're going to turn this thing on. Then we're going to click it together and turn it around and have a look at it. Boom! Haha, check that out! That looks so good! And it seems to be sitting down pretty well. Probably would work a bit better if we glued it, but like I said, for the moment we're not going to glue it. We're going to leave it as is. Yes! That works so nicely! And the color comes through really well, especially across the top. There is a bit of a light bleed out the sides here. I might have to do another version and spray paint the whole thing black just to avoid this light bleed out the side here. But for the moment, I am pretty happy with that. Check it out. Maybe have to slow the timings down a little bit. It is cycling through those colors ridiculously quickly right now. And yeah, might have the PWM effect, I don't know. I'm not sure how the camera is going to pick that up or not. And there we go. There it sits up in its new home, and it is going to stay there for quite a while, I would say. It is pretty cool. It's, I think, a little bit difficult to see on camera maybe. At least it's difficult for me to see in my camera screen because it is so small. On your computer screen, you might actually be able to see it a little bit easier, but I love it. I mean, I may not turn it on for every single video because, let's be honest, I probably will forget at some point in the future, but it's there, it's cool, I love it. The big point of this though is that Bugglebots is here. Go check out the trailer, go check out their videos that I have in the description, and yeah, come back here when Annie does get her time to shine in Bugglebots because we will be talking about it and we'll probably do a little bit of post-fight stuff over here. I mean, there is some post-fight stuff that Bugglebots do themselves. They do post-fight interviews, but of course, those interviews are done in the heat of the moment, directly after the fights have happened. Before, personally, I've had time to think about how the fight actually went. And so there's some stuff that I'll add to what I said all those months ago when the filming happened. And there might be stuff that I'll change about it, having rewatched the footage, because of course, yeah, when you're in the moment and actually doing the fighting, adrenaline takes over and sometimes there is just gaps. There's whole sections of the fight that you don't remember at all. So seeing the footage back will definitely help me get some of that back. And yeah, we'll definitely be talking about those fights as they happen, or at least as the heat happens, or after the heat happens. Anyway, there will be more Bugglebots content on this channel for sure. So, like I said, check out the links in the description, check it all out. Be sure to go over and subscribe to Bugglebots. And yeah, I will see you guys in the next video.